Imagine someone walks up to you on the street and says, "Hey, I'm starting a company. It's losing $5 billion every single year. Want to buy in? Oh, and by the way, the price tag is $1.75 trillion. You'd laugh in their face and walk away, right? But here's the thing. You already said yes. And nobody asked you. Because within the next few weeks, your retirement savings, your mutual funds, your index funds, they're all going to automatically buy shares in SpaceX. Not because someone made that decision for you, but because the system was quietly re-engineered to make it happen. This is the story of the largest IPO, initial public offering, in human history. And an IPO, in simple terms, is when a private company opens its doors to the public and says, "Okay, now you can buy a piece of us." But this IPO isn't just big, it's engineered. The rules were changed, the red carpet was rolled out. And the bill? It's being handed to you. So before you find out you own a piece of this thing one night, let's figure out what the hell you're actually buying. Ask 10 people on the street what SpaceX sells. 8 will say rockets, 2 will say Mars stuff. Both are wrong. SpaceX isn't one company. It's 3 businesses stacked on top of each other like a financial burger. And trust me, one of those layers is pure junk. Let's go through them. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The ugly, XAI, the money furnace. This is the part that should scare you most. In early 2025, SpaceX quietly absorbed a company called XAI, that's Elon Musk's artificial intelligence lab, in what's called an all-stock deal, meaning nobody paid cash. They just swapped papers and shook hands. And the price tag for XAI? $250 billion. Now here's where it gets wild. XAI was founded by 11 heavy hitters. Researchers pulled straight out of DeepMind, OpenAI, Google. A literal dream team. But by 2025, every single one of those 11 co-founders had walked out the door. And the company? It's burning over $1 billion every single month. To put that in perspective, OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, makes around $24 billion a year and is valued at $850 billion. Anthropic makes over $30 billion a year and is valued at $400 billion. XAI? It makes roughly $1 billion a year and was bought for $250 billion. That's like paying Ferrari money for a car that doesn't start. Think of it this way. There are budget airlines that somehow stay in the sky, Spirit Airlines. You know the one. Tiny seats, zero legroom, surprise fees for breathing. The market is pricing XA. I like its Emirates First Class. But in reality, it's Spirit Airlines with a rocket logo. And Elon himself admitted, on his own platform, X, that XAI needs to be rebuilt from the foundations up. So the CEO of the company you're about to be forced to invest in just paid $250 billion for something he's rebuilding from scratch. Let that sink in. This is the part of SpaceX that doesn't build anything. It just burns whatever money the rest of the business makes. The bad, the rocket business, famous but overhyped. Okay, now we're at the part everyone pictures when they hear SpaceX, the rockets, the big beautiful machines launching satellites, cargo to the International Space Station, astronauts for NASA, and everything in between. And yes, the rocket business is genuinely impressive. It brought in roughly $4 billion in revenue last year. But here's the gut punch moment. That $4 billion in revenue is only about a quarter of SpaceX's total earnings, which means rockets, the thing that made SpaceX famous, isn't even the main event, it's the opening act. Now let's talk about the good Starlink, the real SpaceX. This is where things get genuinely mind-blowing. Starlink is a satellite internet company. Think of it like this. Imagine Comcast or Geo, but instead of digging cables underground, they launch 10,000 satellites into space that beam internet directly down to a small dish on your rooftop. The dish finds the satellites on its own. The satellites talk to each other, and somehow, it works beautifully. Podcast host and entrepreneur Scott Galloway called it flat out the best tech product of the last few years. He said he's done podcasts from planes, FaceTimed his kids mid-flight, things that felt impossible just a decade ago. That's Starlink. And the numbers back him up completely. Starlink now has over 10 million active subscribers across 150 countries. In 2025 alone, it brought in $11.4 billion in revenue. That's 61% of all of SpaceX's money. The rockets are famous. Starlink pays the bills. But the part that really blows my mind isn't the revenue, it's the profit margins. 2 years ago, Starlink's profit margin, meaning how much money they keep after paying all their costs, was around 41%. Today, it's 63%. That's a jump of over 20 percentage points in just 2 years. The margins aren't just good, they're accelerating, like a rocket that keeps going faster after it's already in the air. And Starlink isn't just for home internet. There's a version for ships and yachts at sea, a version rolling out on commercial airlines, and a classified top-secret defense version called Starshield, with contracts directly from the Pentagon and the National Reconnaissance Office. The US military is literally paying Starlink to keep its eyes in the sky. This is the real SpaceX, not rockets, not Mars. A satellite internet company that is printing money at an accelerating pace, with government defense contracts and global coverage as the moat around it. So why is it losing $5 billion a year? Starlink and the rocket business together pulled in roughly $8 billion in profit last year. Then xAI showed up to the party, and it set the whole thing on fire. After absorbing xAI's losses, the combined company, the SpaceX you're about to partially own, ended up losing nearly $5 billion on $18.5 billion in total revenue. A profitable business became unprofitable the moment Elon stapled a money furnace to it. And now this loss-making machine is going public at $1.75 trillion. Who's actually buying this? It's you. To understand this, you need to know what the NASDAQ 100 is. It's basically a prestigious club of the top technology and growth companies. Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon. The names you already know. And it's not just a list. It matters enormously because there are over 200 investment products, ETFs, index funds, retirement funds, with over $600 billion in assets that are legally set up to automatically track and mirror this index. So when a company gets added to the NASDAQ 100, every single one of those funds is forced to buy its stock. No debate, no vote. Automatic. That's why getting into the NASDAQ 100 isn't just a badge of honor. It's a guaranteed flood of money. Now, under the old rules, a newly listed company had to wait at least 3 months before it could join the NASDAQ 100. That waiting period existed for a reason. It gave the market time to figure out what the company was actually worth before the passive funds were forced to pour billions in. It's like letting a new restaurant open for a few months before putting it on every tourist map in the city. You want to make sure people have tested the food first. But on May 1st, 2025, NASDAQ quietly introduced something called the Fast Entry Rule. And with SpaceX reportedly targeting a June IPO date, the timing of this rule change is, let's call it extremely convenient. Here's what changed. 3 rules, all at once. Rule change number 1, the waiting period. NASDAQ slashed the 3-month wait down to just 15 trading days. 3 months of price discovery compressed into 3 weeks. The market barely has time to blink before passive funds are forced to buy in. Rule change number 2, the free float requirement. A free float is the percentage of a company's shares that are actually available for regular people to buy and sell on the open market. The old rule required at least 10% of shares to be publicly available before a company could join the NASDAQ 100. SpaceX is planning a free float of just 4 to 5%. Under the old rules, automatic disqualification. Under the new rules, that minimum no longer exists. SpaceX suddenly qualifies. Rule change number 3, the hidden multiplier. This is the wildest one. Buried deep in the technical language of the new rules is a quiet little trick. For companies with a free float under 20%, NASDAQ now pretends the float is 3 times bigger than it actually is when calculating how much money passive funds must put into it. So if SpaceX floats 5% of its shares, NASDAQ will treat it as if 15% was available. This isn't real. The shares don't exist. But the demand it creates? Completely real. Think of it like a restaurant that only has 10 tables, but tells every food delivery app it has 30. The orders keep coming in. The restaurant can't handle them. But the reviews pile up and the algorithm keeps pushing it to the top. Manufactured demand, built into the rules. And then there's the retail play. Most IPOs give about 5 to 10% of shares to regular retail investors. People like you and me who aren't big institutional funds. SpaceX is offering 30% to retail. And here's the kicker. SpaceX's own CFO, Brett Johnson, stood in a room full of bankers and said on record that retail buyers are going to be a critical part of the IPO because they've been incredibly supportive of Elon for a long time. Read that again slowly. The CFO of the largest IPO in history just told a room of bankers they're allocating a massive chunk to retail investors. Not because it's smart investing strategy, but because they're loyal to Elon. What he's really saying is, the most enthusiastic buyers get in first. The insiders, people who got in early at dirt cheap prices, need someone to sell to eventually. And retail, the everyday people who love the brand and believe in the mission, are perfectly positioned to absorb those shares at peak valuation. Portfolio manager George Noble said it better than anyone. Your 401k is the exit liquidity. Exit liquidity. That's Wall Street language for you're the last buyer, the person holding the bag when the music stops. The buyers come in early. The sellers, insiders with low-cost shares, cash out later. And in the middle, your retirement account automatically buying SpaceX because the rules now say it has to, and SpaceX is just the first. This isn't just about one company. OpenAI and Anthropic are both reportedly preparing their own public listings. And both are almost certainly going to list with the same low-float, fast-entry structure these new rules were tailor-made for. NASDAQ didn't rewrite the rules for SpaceX. It rewrote them for a new class of mega companies. And SpaceX just happened to be first in line. The runway is built, the rules are set, and the plane is about to take off, with your money on board. So here's the real picture, the honest one. SpaceX is 3 companies in a trench coat pretending to be one. Inside that code, a genuinely incredible satellite internet business that's scaling faster than anything we've ever seen, a rocket business riding on its own legend, and an AI company that burns $1 billion a month and was just absorbed at $250 billion despite needing to be rebuilt from scratch. Combined, they lost $5 billion last year, and they're going public at $1.75 trillion, the largest IPO valuation in human history. The traditional financial media will sell you the rocket launch, the satellite map, the Mars dream, and none of that is false. But it's also not the full story. The full story is this. NASDAQ quietly rewrote 3 of its own rules right before this IPO. Rules that shorten the time before your passive funds are forced to buy in. Rules that remove the minimum public share requirement SpaceX didn't meet. And rules that artificially inflate how much demand SpaceX gets on paper. Even though the supply isn't there, the system was adjusted, the carpet was rolled out. And at the end of that carpet, whether you asked for it or not, is your retirement account. Passive investing was sold to you as the smartest, simplest way to build wealth. Low fees, diversification. Set it and forget it. And all of that is genuinely true. But the one thing nobody mentioned in that pitch? The same feature that makes passive investing automatic and easy for you also makes you an automatic buyer for anyone who figures out how to squeeze into the index. And right now, somebody just squeezed their way in. So the next time someone asks you if you've invested in SpaceX, the honest answer might be, I didn't choose to, but apparently I didn't need to. If you want to understand what's actually happening in finance, not just the headlines, but the mechanics underneath them, subscribe. Because the headline is, SpaceX going public at $2 trillion. But the real story is how the rules were rewritten to make sure you're holding the bag. And that story, nobody else is telling it.